Before starting the session, I quickly introduce the panel, even though a lot of you will be familiar with the people here. It's, you're right, it's Pier Tosi, radio host from Bologna. Next to him is writer and author David Katz from London. Next to me is Pete Lilly, editor of Riddim Magazine, and my name is Koehlings, also editor of Riddim Magazine. And before we delve into the subject, I want you to listen to the song, you know, who gave the title to this session, which is GHETTO's Story. And I would love you to pay attention to the lyrics. Selector, come in.
This is my story, real ghetto story. Hey, I remember those days when hell was my home, when me and mama bed was a big piece of home. And me never like pain, and my ear never come when mama gonna hurt me, the street or roam. I remember when daddy get me so cold and making me for bread and kick up Jerome. I remember when we visit him with pure big stone, and the boy daddy pop out somewhere from home. I remember when we run after the thing blown, and my best friend Richie doing I'm down. I remember Sunday Avenue turning up war zone, and I came out of fly mode, now she get alone. I keep up to foreign and go turn on the phone. They put me on me and said me no one know. I'm with them at the city, and that is well known. Yesterday Mikey called me on the phone. Listen Mikey, we got the thing them out and look now. We squeeze 7 and the whole of them I don't know. We have one in the extra that we don't broke now. We got the thing them, them up the real quick. How we got that to them wicked and play. I know the one community on it, real quick. I remember about 8 in Jamaica explode when I Trinity and Tony you with them on the road. That I long before length, them and even bigger foe. When I bounce in my car and I know the road cold. I remember when we robbed the Chinese shot down the road, and Uma often said the Chinese man have a soul. But we did have a one pop on the cold about. So you know the next day I'm about to overload. I remember when we stick the poor curves and dump the ball and bounce panty by the outskirts, and all I play a ticket and not chill over turns. When we come back I still in the whole me alert. I remember those days when in front of Turks get one in my face and we don't get no perks. And the bigger heads them are a couple of jerks. Cause I never met the money when I mash the house, but we got the thing that
Yeah, truly one of the biggest dancehall anthems in my opinion, and give Cham an applause for this piece of work, this piece of work. And I would like to put the first question to Cham. Cham, you were born in Marley and you grew up in the JFP enclave, Duhaney Park, more precisely Sherlock Crescent. And since, you know, GHETTO Story is also kind of an kind of autobiography of you. So maybe you take us back to your early years, what it meant, you know, to grow up in Sherlock Crescent.
Well, it was a pleasure. And it's a pleasure being here. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for inviting me here also. It was, to me, growing up in the inner city is like a university. You basically learn how to survive each and every day. My mom used to be doing 2 jobs. She used to work, she used to sew for Gap. And apart from those 2 jobs daily, we used to sell peanuts, grater cake, drops. So it was 4 of us in the house and she was by herself. My dad passed away at the age of when I was like 10. So she was sending all of us to high school. And school fee in Jamaica at the time and even now is not joke, it's not cheap, so she had to do what she had to do. And it's just one of them things. It's one of them things that you live, you see a lot, you learn a lot, you see a lot of stuff that goes on within just politics and a whole in Jamaica. You learn a lot about politics. And you have to basically guide yourself through these streets. And you lose friends along the way. You lose family, but it's just one of them things, and you live, you move on, and you try to stay as far away from it as possible. and get out of it as quick as possible whenever you understand it and understand the deep roots of it, and you have lost people and lost friends, you try to get out of it. But it's one of them things that you'd never ever change. I would never ever change how I was raised. I was born and raised. The first 5, 6, 7 years of my life I was between Marvel Union and Waterhouse, which is Kingston 19 and Kingston 30, Kingston 11. And then from age 7 to now, I've been in Kingston 20, which is Sherlock Crescent, Green Park. And I've never ever changed anything at all. Everything that's, to me, everyone got their journey. And when it's your journey, and it's made me who I am, and it's made all my friends who they are right now. Some things that they weren't proud of growing up at a tender age, but a lot of them has made it out. And you're a circumstance of your environment, and you never ever judge no one at all of what they're facing or what they're going through at that time, because you don't know what they had to do or what they had to face. You understand? So it's one of them things.
You mentioned politics, the involvement of politics, and I want to put a question to Sonjah, Stanley, Niaah, who is next to me, who is a senior lecturer in cultural studies at the University of the West Indies in Mona, Kingston. And you know, she had a book published in 2010, I think it was. It's called Dancehall from Slave Ship to Ghetto, and it kind of links the culture of the dancehall to the experience of the African diaspora. And I wanted to ask you, Sonjah, because when we talk about inner city, you know, no matter what we use as term, if we use ghetto, inner city, but often the term garrison is dropped. And I'm not sure if all the people are familiar with the term garrison. Maybe Sonjah, you can explain the political involvement also.
Very happy to be here, always a pleasure to be here. Really glad to see you. And I'm so happy I was invited to speak on this panel. So, politically, we talk about garrison communities in Jamaica as an alternative representation of governance. So, a garrison community would be headed by an alternate leader, but also connected to the leadership of the country, specifically a political party. So an official political party in Jamaica, we have a two-party system. It's the Jamaica Labour Party, or JLP, and the People's National Party, or PNP. And a garrison community, such as Tivoli Gardens, for example, is a JLP stronghold. And there are very specific attributes, very specific characteristics of a garrison that makes it beholden to a political party. So for example, there are systems in place to ensure votes. There are systems in place to ensure a particular kind of alternative leadership in terms of punishment, in terms of morality. There are various ways in which the ghetto or the garrison community displays various aspects of what would be considered to be alternative systems. Now, we in our consciousness of the nation, we remember certain periods that would strengthen this idea of the garrison in the consciousness of the people. So, 1980s, the 1980 election, for example, we know after that point, the consciousness of Tivoli Gardens and garrisons such as those increased. You know, people entering Tivoli Gardens, for example, was a no-no. You live in Kingston, but you're certainly not going to go to Tivoli, and the opposite was also true. If you live in Tivoli, chances are you never leave that community, and that's the case for many garrison communities in Jamaica. I have relatives, for example, who live in Denham Town, and before they knew I was living in Kingston, they were never leaving their communities. In fact, they are in fear of leaving their communities because the outside world is such a different kind of space. So there's a mental, psychological element that is also there, which is very, very important that people don't understand. So while there is a political reality, there's also a lived reality, an existential reality, which occupies the mind in a particular kind of way.
Thank you so much. I think we got questions for Cham.
Cham, in Ghetto Story, you also refer to the involvement in the ghetto when you talk about stealing ballot boxes with the votes of the other party. Maybe you can just share with us how far politics involved your life as a youth in Doheny Park.
Well, politics on the whole, Sherlock Crescent was branded as Little Tivoli, because apart from Tivoli Garden, Sherlock Crescent is the next stronghold within Kingston in terms of being JLP, which is the Jamaica Labour Party. So as far as votes, everyone in the community had to vote. There wasn't, you didn't have a choice, or you didn't have your own say. You just grow in that system knowing that you're going to support the Jamaica Labour Party until the end. You understand? So you basically, back then it's not like now. So back then they used to have everyone voting. It's just an X, and you used to dip your finger. So they used to get the ballot boxes, or they get the vote sheets, and they bring it all around in the condominiums. The condominiums are like high-rise buildings. In America they would call them the projects. So in Sherlock Crescent we have 5 different projects. So they would have them in the condominiums, and each individual would go on that day and vote, whether you are 13, 15, 21, 10, 9, 7, 30, 40, and it's just one of them things.
Or dead.
Yes. So it was just ways of the politicians to get vote to win their constituency or to win the election. And by doing that, they would provide monetary funding, cars, sometimes visas. Back then, a lot of visas would be issued. You'd get passports, visas for individuals to go and try and better their lives overseas. So they were carrying out these orders in order to better their lives. You understand? And by your constituency or your political party winning the election, you would have favors granted to you in terms of your whatever you need, in terms of whatever your request was. If it wasn't too much, then you would have that favor granted to you. So I think politics played a major role in our upbringing and a whole within my situation growing up as a kid in Sherlock Crescent. And up to the day, that's how my slogan coming out as an artist was wow, wow. And at first it wasn't wow, it was show. If you saw me on the street, the first thing I would say, wow, show, yes, show, but there, show. How you doing, show? Till Dave Kelly was the one that said to me one day, like, yo, people here cool with it, but one of these days you're gonna say it, that people are gonna think that you're deep into politics, which I wasn't. We just grew up that way, we basically got embedded in your brain. It's like a brainwash. So going to school, evening school, we were like in the morning, yo, show, what's up? So I flipped it from show to just wow. And from there, everyone just say, wow.
So, but you're both saying that in those days it was widespread falsified voting to determine the elections in a particular area.
Yeah, every single area, that's how it is. That's how it is. Now, it's a little bit different because like the politicians don't have that strong hold on the communities anymore because of just modern time. Artists as a whole started developing from different areas that started to employ their friends. So you find that instead of the community going to the politicians for back to school supplies, they would go to the artists. So the politicians became less relevant in the ghetto, in where I'm from at least. Where Sonjah is talking about in Tivoli Garden, it was a little bit different. You understand? Where I'm from, they became more and more not so relevant as the years came by, as the years blew by, because you find that instead of them making kids be able to go to college overseas, then we would do our best to assist in those situations, whether back to school, whether the community needed new jerseys for the community football team, whether they needed the park development in terms of swings, seesaws, rides for the kids in the park. We would kind of take that responsibility moving forward. So you find that politicians closer, like probably mid-90s to late 90s moving forward, they didn't have that struggle in our community anymore.
Can I just add to that, saying a bit about that, because I think to some extent what Cham is saying is also true for Tivoli Gardens. Whereas when electioneering is happening, when it's election time, the relevance of the politician and their mechanisms for ensuring votes takes precedence. At even that time, residents of garrison communities can vote otherwise. It's not as though they don't do that. In some cases they do. They collect the money from the politician who's going to come and give them the spoils and the benefits. And then they go sometimes and vote the other way.
Yes.
So that there are some moments when politicians become very surprised based on the results of certain elections. And of course, we might be told that ex-politician won his seat when really and truly never win the seat because of how it is the voting might have gone awry. But I also wanted to make a link between the role of artists and the role of the politicians in communities, and I think widespread in terms of Jamaica, because the influence is there not only in terms of a Cham who, for example, is within his community, visible at different points, but also through the airwaves. When Buju Banton, for example, say election time will come, are you going to vote now? It is a particular kind of influence that would cause him to be able to send that kind of message out and have people listen and really question, am I going to now become this sheep that will follow the way of the politician that has never served me? And that's very important and crucial. But there's another link, because artists have influenced Jamaica in very different ways, becoming even more powerful than politicians. And we know some artists, we're not going to call the name, maybe Cham can call the name them. Some artists who really and truly have such a hold on the residents of their communities that politicians really don't have no say. Politicians have to check the artists. Now, this is nothing new, because in the days of the development of the sound system with Duke Reed and all of these people, Sir Cox and Dodd, when they were arriving at the airport with their new tunes, there would be a motorcade, and it was very, very obvious that the kind of power and influence they had was more than that of the politicians of the time.
Everybody wants to say something.
Cham, how far did music play a role for you, either to cope with the realities of the ghetto and also to maybe get out of those realities?
Well, music to me was everything. Music was everything. At first, my first love was football, which is soccer. And I used to play football at a good level. National under 12, national under 14, national under 16. So I used to play it at a good level, but at the time, no money was in football. And I lost my dad at like age 10. My mom was under pressure, basically trying to send us to school, trying to keep food on the table. So the next best thing that I knew how to do at the time was music, because my uncle had a sound system in Waterhouse by the name of Studemix. Super Cat used to perform on the sound system. John Wayne used to perform on the sound system, and I would go there like every day after school, just to basically nurture my skills and nurture my delivery technique. As far as like how music basically helped me in every single way at like age 13, 14, I lost one of my friends, one of my best friends. We sang about it in Ghetto Story, and it was over just regular Labor Day. You call that community work, which it was gully work money. We never used to go in the gully. My friends basically ran the community. And I was good at maths, good at accounting, so I'd be able to basically do the books well. And I was the one who basically did the books whenever like money ran in the community. And we would count up the heads, whosoever they appointed to do various works. You would pay them basically $500 each. So I was the man's brain, and altercation developed over the money, and my friend got shot and died right there on the spot. Ever since then, I just started going to the studio every single day. Every single day. I didn't want to be no part of it anymore. Even though the individual that did it got what was coming to him, it didn't do anything at all for me, because my friend wasn't coming back, and he's never ever coming back, and it doesn't change no feeling. Reprisal doesn't change anything at all. Like, you don't feel better the next day, you don't feel better a year after, 2 years after, 10 years after. You still miss that person no matter what, whenever you reflect or that person run across your mind. So I started going to the studio, and studio basically changed everything, every single thing. At probably age 18, I could afford to let my mom stop working in the garment factory. My mom used to come home with like needle jokes, like big needle jokes in her fingers like every other day. And she didn't know I was paying attention to this, but I used to see that every day, and no matter what, she would still have to be doing the greater cakes, doing the jobs, and just being in the studio. Being in the studio is like you don't have to be looking behind you, you don't have to be looking sideways, you don't have to be worrying about any form of altercations in the community. Just right there and then in the studio, you're in your own world. That's your world, that's your sanctuary, that's your place where you can just zone out and do what you want to do and have fun. And I think that what the studio did for me, not just monetary stuff, but just let me be able to just express myself how I wanted to express myself. And basically be able to take my family and take my friends out of that garrison mentality. Not just taking them out the garrison, but take that mentality out their brains, where that was injected from a tender age that, yo, we can get out of here, we can basically do how we want to do it, than our forefathers do it. You understand what I'm saying? But do it different in our way, but at the same time keep that grassroots with the community just the same. You find that artists before us used to probably have to leave the community totally in order to feel safe, how they wanted to feel safe. But then we grew up in a way that we kept a link with the community and still was able to influence the community in the way that we wanted to influence the community.
I want to take us back a little bit, because what we're talking about now is more or less contemporary Jamaica. But if we go back to the days of the peasantry, the plantation days, even before that, and even all the way back to what would be a slave ship past, we see that there has really been only a superficial transformation from the days of slavery to now. And that's what I write about in my book, Dancehall, From Slave Ship to Ghetto, because when I look at the reality of marginalized people, disenfranchised people, the lack of space for entertainment to live and have your being, the way in which you're forced to do certain things, whether it is for the politician or otherwise, the way in which you cannot really express yourself. You can't be a sovereign being charting your own course, because there are so many elements there to disturb and distract you. For me, there were important parallels to draw from a slave ship era, a plantation era, the era of the peasantry, where the process of emancipation was completely, certainly incomplete, to now, where you have people living in lanes, 8 by 7 foot homes, housing more than 3 children, families in a yard, 4 or 5 families living in what we call tenement or government yards. These things are very important. In the days of the peasantry, the merchants lived on the streets, and those who were workers, before them the slaves, the enslaved peoples, they were living in the lanes. So when we look at an inner city community, when we look at a ghetto, one of the things we're also seeing spatially is the way in which there has been a superficial transformation, if any at all, from the days of slavery to now. I wanted to just say that.
And I found it interesting, of course, what Sonjah said too, and also Cham, when you take the aspect of the music, so the studio was like a safe haven, not only to express yourself, but also to be really safe.
To get away. Yeah, the studio was like that. The studio, and up to today, the studio is still an escape. Sometimes you just need to get out of your house. Whether it's your wife making noise that they don't want to hear. Sometimes the studio is not up to today. Up to today, the studio is not there. No matter what's going on in our lives, each of us are human beings, so none of us are perfect. So we have daily problems like anyone else, and no matter what's going on in the world, if you notice it's the same when you go to a concert. You basically block out everything else that's happening in the world that's wrong, and you just enjoy yourself right there and there for just what it is. It's like you have one life to live, and it's like YOLO, right there and then. You only just enjoying it right there and then, and that's what the studio was for me, and up to today day. No matter what's going on, when I get in the studio, it's like heaven to me.
Okay, so I have a question about which studio did you gravitate towards first, and had you already been out getting exposure on sound system before that?
I was already getting exposure on sound system from like age 7. My uncle had a sound system by the name of Studio Mix, as I said before. Super Cat used to perform on it, John Wayne. So I was like exposed to like that core and authentic dancehall development from a tender age. Then I got exposed to the studio life now through Dave Kelly. Manos Records, I met them by Penthouse recording studio. At the time, Dave Kelly didn't have his own studio. We used to basically rent Penthouse, but he was the producer of Penthouse before that. And that's how I used to leave my house like probably 7 a.m. in the morning, took a bus to Penthouse, probably 20-35 minutes drive. Penthouse was at Crossroads, that's like in middle Kingston. Between Arbitrary and downtown, that's in the middle, and that's where we used to be. 53, I think it's 53 Slipe Road, yeah, 53 or something like that, Slipe Road, right? Yeah. So that's weird. So I was already getting hardcore dancehall lessons on the sound systems. Then I graduated from that into the studio with Dave Kelly.
And since you mentioned Dave Kelly, who to me is like the most influential producer in the 90s, you know, along the Joyride rhythm, maybe Pete, you could play, if that is possible, oh no, he needs a CD. I was too spontaneous with that one. But since we all know, you know, Dave Kelly, I think it's hard to get a picture. We want to get a picture in Riddim Magazine, but from behind, you know, because he had his face marked out very wide into his face, and he's like a very enigmatic figure, and also calls himself a stranger. So maybe you can enlighten the people a bit about the role of Dave Kelly as the producer.
Dave Kelly, for all dancehall lovers here, is basically responsible for the change of dancehall. Dave Kelly was responsible for Buju Banton's career, Nadine Sutherland, Terror Fabulous, Louis Culture, Garnet Silk, Tony Rebel. I've heard stories where the producer and owner of Penthouse label basically sent Garnet Silk and Tony Rebel back home, tell them that they weren't ready to start recording. And Dave Kelly basically told them that don't listen to Donovan Germain. He's leaving tomorrow back to the States. You come and see me and we will record. And that's how they recorded Fresh Vegetable. Don't tell me something I love Tony Rebel. So it's like Dave Kelly's basically responsible for all those artists back then. But if you see him, you would never know because he's still of our age group. And he's been making hit songs, you name it. You name the songs, big it up. Galaxy about it, Ride and Murder, you name them. Me love me car, me love me bike, me love me money and thing. Most of all, me love me brownie. action, not about all those songs. So going to school, we were buying records like every weekend. We would save up our lunch money and purchase 7-inch vinyls. And every hit song we used to see the name Dave Kelly. So obviously, if we are going into the music, we're going to look for this producer. And whatever we have to do, this is the producer that we want to audition for. I went to see him when I was in 4th form, which is 10th grade. And did an audition for him. Said he liked our sound, liked my writing skills, but he wouldn't record me because I was still attending high school. So we made a deal then that if I came back to him 1 year after with proof of graduation, I had to, yes, that was the deal. I had to return with my graduation certificate. And he stressed that even if you came and say you graduate, you still won't record. I needed proof from Calabar High School that you had graduated. Again, I went back to him 1 year after with my graduation certificate, and from then we've been making music up to today.
Track 10. Mr. Selector, come in, track 10.
No lyrics at all was written for that song. Everything in that song was freestyle from Wayne Wonder and myself. We were driving to this party called Frenchmen in Jamaica. It's my first time ever. When I heard about beach party, this is my first time ever at a beach party. First time ever going to a beach party. In the ghetto, when we were going out, we would dress slick to the bone. Our parents wouldn't let us get out of the house unless you are fully slicked. So picture me, Sunday, we're going to the beach party. I have a mesh marina on, a brown jeans, a brown plaid shirt, spanged up button to the top, and fly, a bally, because that's how we dressed in the ghetto, straight, spanged up to the strap. Yeah? When I got to the beach party, everyone was dressed in casual, like regular trunk shorts, marina, bikinis. I wasn't used to that none at all. I had to take off the shirt, keep my marina on, roll up my pants, take off my ballet. But that's how we used to dress in the ghetto. So we were driving to Port Antonio. At the time, Frenchman party was kept in Port Antonio. Dave Kelly just made the beat. He was playing the beat in the car. Wayne Wonder started singing, "We're taking a ride, because we were driving to the beach. So he was just freestyling. And right there and then, I started freestyling, cruising around with a jeep full of honeys. Each one beneath the juice of me to their mommies. And if you're listening, that's really freestyle. There's no word as interjuice and me. So it's basically me making up words to fit on the beat. So by right, I should have said, introduce me to their mommies. So I said, introduce me to their mommies. So I want to talk. So nothing at all was written for this song. It was all just freestyle from the dome, and Dave Kelly kept it like that ever since then, and we got a classic from it. So big up to Dave Kelly for basically just allowing us to just express our artistry and express our poetry.
Yeah, I think this time was very special in dancehall, you know, and to this day everybody tries to copy and go back again to that time. So Sonjah, how did you experience those days of dancehall? Because I know you're a big dancehall fan.
You know, it's amazing, I look like an article empress, and people get really surprised when I tell them that dancehall is my favorite music. But for me, you know, I tell people my music, I forgot boop, it up. It's like that for me. But dancehall is my principal form of entertainment, you know, and I've traveled the world, I know music from all over the place, but I always come back to dancehall. And it's something about Jamaica that gets expressed through music, and it doesn't happen anywhere else like that. No. It just doesn't. No. For those of you who don't know, Jamaica has given the world 6 different genres of music. Some people argue it's 7 if you add Niaah. Who can tell me the 7 genres? I just told you one.
Mental, ska, rocksteady, reggae, dancehall. What you said?
Niaah Reggae.
Niaah Reggae. I think I'm missing one.
The thing happening in Jamaica is that we are busy producing music and loving it. But there are so few of us who understand the value of the music to be recording, you know, researching, writing, documenting, and publishing about this music. So for quite some time, many Jamaicans were not into this business of researching the lived reality that was a part of their experience. And so, you know, I come in that tradition. I'm one of those people who have been writing about the music. And I'm glad I'm writing about the music, but I'm also glad that I'm not divorcing myself from that lived reality. People see me in dancehall events, I go to these events, they get really shocked that I tell them this, but I go anywhere. I'm one of those Jamaicans that want to go anywhere in Jamaica. I'm not afraid to go away. Anyone go.
Yeah.
And it's important because there are people from outside of Jamaica who get to Jamaica and they go anywhere to experience our music. There are people outside of Jamaica who know more about Jamaican music than people inside of Jamaica. And that's just the reality. The king is never really honored in his own home. So it's going to take some time for Jamaicans to really understand the value of what they produced. But to get back to the experience and what dancehall meant to me, you know, this is something I wrote in the book. There's a song by Tapazuki, every time they pass me go, hello, come on. You know that song? Yeah. Tapazuki's Rocksteady. Me and my sister in 1978, 78, 79 used to sing, every time them panty go, hello, come on. And my mother was the one that corrected us, saying, no, that's not what he's saying. It's every time them pass me go, not panty. So from a very early age, I was very in tune to the music. And of course, everybody in Jamaica, you know, even if you don't speak the kind of patois, in the way that the language is evolving daily, you can sing the songs word for word as you're growing up because that's really the music that resonates with you. And that's something that it hasn't changed. The young people are still doing it. Whether it's the cartels that they're listening to or whoever it is, we can sing the songs word for word because that is something important about the experience of living in Jamaica that gets expressed through music. And it's certainly my heartbeat, and I hope it's at least partially yours.
Yeah, so Cham, you were mentioning earlier, you make it sound like those early days with David Kelly, that it was all about spontaneity and also the interaction between the artists in that stable there. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about the working environment at Madhouse and how did it change once he had his own studio?
Once we had our own studio, nothing really changed. It's the same philosophy. It's never about egos or individuals. That's our way of working. It's about the music and the work that needs to be done. As our philosophy, as our creative energy flow, we stick to the philosophy of using the studio to have fun, and that's our motto from day one. So you find that that's how we've been doing music from day one. We have never ever been the type that wanted to get in controversy for just for just some record sales. I've never been the individual that basically started like lyrical conflicts. I've always been that individual that depended on substance to let my music went across the world, and that's the way Dave Kelly look at it also. It's just basically you're an individual in the studio, you leave the eye at the door, you get in the lab, and it's just fun. Having fun in the lab is not about egos, individuals, and none of that. It's just about having fun, and that's how we've been working, and that's how we are going to continue to work.
I have a question for you, Cham. When you look at your experience, what would you say is what you would remember as the most successful moment for you? What would you classify that moment to be?
A lot of people probably would say like Grammy nominees, or like MTV Awards and those stuff, but to me it's the first time I heard my song on the radio. The first time. That's the first time. It's like you're basically fighting. You're fighting for your whole family and your life and your friends around you. And you know that for you to be able to win this fight, you'll have to get on the radio or get in the sound systems or whatever it may be, whatever outlet there be. And the first time I heard my first song on the radio, that's basically my moment. You find that management and probably Dave would look at it different. Maddox Records would look at it like probably the nomination of Ghetto Story for the Grammy, or the nomination of Ghetto Story for the top 100 song on Vibe magazine, or Billboard chart toppers when we went, Ghetto Story went number 7. To me, that wasn't it. That was like the icing on the cake to me. The first time I heard my song, that's the best moment for me.
Oh, I have a question for both of you. And you, Sonjah, told the dance is your favorite music because it's the soul of Jamaica and is reflecting the hopes and the life of the people. And we did mention a golden era like the Penthouse, David Kelly, Tony Rebel, Buju, and Garnet Silk, and German Riddim. Is it the same way the dancehall now, the current dancehall is reflecting the soul of the people and the hopes of the people compared to those times, or something has changed?
Very interesting question. And the answer is yes. It is the same because people change and evolve, and for those young people now who are experiencing the music, it is a reality, at least for some. What's interesting about music and the appreciation of popular music is that there's always going to be a difference in appreciation of popular music. Each era will have its fans, the next era of its fans, and I'm not going to be a fan of your music because it's just not my era. I can appreciate it, but this is the thing, there's a difference in appreciation where popular music is concerned. What is interesting though, is that my golden era is that era, by the way, the 90s. And I can still appreciate now when a busy signal dips into the catalog and samples a rhythm from the 90s and comes up with a hit song. That for me is marvelous. But suppose that's not what's happening. And there are all of these new artists now, the Gauges and the Dexter Daps and all of these people. The fact is, they are reflecting a particular kind of time. That's not necessarily my time, not your time, but it's the reality of some people whose time it is. And for me, one has to be able to look beyond the evaluative judgment in music and be able to appreciate that it is for somebody their time.
Let me speak on that for a minute. To me, artist is like a mirror of society. Whatever society reflects, we tend to reflect it back with music, words, and melodies. And you have 7 different brothers, 7 different minds. Each individual is experiencing different stuff at a time. So if you take away the artist from an artist, he's no longer an artist. So you cannot tell him how to express him or herself. You have to just give them their space and let them express themselves. So for instance, you will have the new artists singing what they want to sing. Just like how you'll have, for instance, I would sing Wine on my body. And then you have a next time that you would hear like a beacon on the mountain. So it's just how we want to express ourselves at that given time. You get what I'm saying?
So if I understand what ETD was saying, you're saying there are generational differences and yet there's continuity in the artistic expression.
Always. Dancehall is a life, is a way of life. Dancehall will never ever like just go away. Dancehall is people's life. They do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every day. And this is their life. And we as artists basically just tap into that and make it into music. And people over the world feel it just the same.
Cham just gave us a good example. Like a beacon on the mountain one time, and the next time is wind up your body. And one of the things we miss when we look at dancehall as a moment, instead of taking that longer historical view, is that all of the themes in the music have always been there from Mento till now. From the very first genre of music coming out of Jamaica, we have had slackness, we have had reprisal talk, we have had the people against the government, we have had all of those themes in the music, but we have to take a long view to be able to see it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I would like to continue on what we have been talking about right now. And dancehall has always been not only about describing the grim realities of the ghetto, but also about having fun. So I would like to play a tune and then ask both of you, first Cham maybe, to tell us what the tune is about and what it has to do with dancehall.
In my call your phone. Every day I'm calling, want to know if you're at home. Yeah, the boy weak like a dog to a bone and she has text about leave him alone.
Me tell him man it's not that issue, come up boom boom turn up. Hey, them a show me come up boom boom turn up. I have to do to him no me say come up boom boom turn up. Boom boom turn up, me say me boom boom turn up. Me tell him man it's not that issue, come up boom boom turn up. Hey, them a show me come up boom boom turn up. I have to do to him no me say come up boom boom turn up. Boom boom turn up, me say me boom boom turn up.
Them me never saw get sound from your man call. Let them want them to your good up and keep the something small. Them ain't no good at road man or roll them like a ball. Them no matter how you do it every day you're there your hall. Them see your man in the club and him not freedom. So if I choose man and that well she a bleeding. Them man no police so you don't want to be them. Tell everybody what you tell them.
Me tell them man it's not right, she come up boom boom turn up. Hey, them a show me come up boom boom turn up. I have to do to him no me say come up boom boom turn up. Boom boom turn up, me say me boom.
Well, as we said, dancehall have every different ingredients. Basically, when a female says her pum pum turn up, it means she's good. And you have to appreciate when a female is good in that essence. It's more of a self-esteem thing for females. You understand? It's a self-esteem. You have some females that are just like anybody else. You're any human being. Male, female. Sometimes they feel low, sometimes they feel high. When you pum pum turn up, you're always feeling high. Come on,
I think I should say, I should make a disclaimer here that this was Cham's experience, but I cannot comment on this song. Except to say that rhythmically, lyrically, it's set off.
Okay, that was a little part of slackness, or we can also find other work. I don't want to damn it as slackness because, you know, what is slack to somebody is not necessarily slack to another.
I mean, I can comment on that. I mean, it's, yeah, people would consider it slackness, but remember that in dancehall, we have a clean version and you have a raw version to every song. So some people might never heard this version, depending on what they're listening to, right?
And then, the ones who call it slackness, they're singing it behind closed doors with their partner, and he's saying that you're turn up.
So what's interesting though is that this term slackness comes into dancehall and was used around a particular time when the music became more available via the airwaves, via cassettes, via CDs. CDs weren't in yet, via cassettes. where you could experience the dance and the essence of the dance outside of the dancehall space. Remember, dancehall was a private space where consenting adults would go to experience this music, to be entertained, to celebrate various aspects of life. And this was always there. In Mental, there was a song about how your pum pum so wet, if my memory serves me. You know, the thing about life is that all of the aspects are there, and you can't, as a human being, you know, suppress aspects of you. There are some people who do, but there are others who don't. It must come out in the music too, and it must have its place. It can't play on radio, but you can hear it in the dance. You can buy a CD, you can buy a cassette. Now it's, you know, YouTube, Spotify, and whatever, you know, versions of download technology. But the fact is, it must have its place, and there are some people who cannot censor for themselves. So for the children, we know say not for airplay.
Okay, I think we only have 15 minutes left, so we would like to open it up for question and answers. So, yeah, feel free to put some questions either to Cham or to Sonjah. I think it was very, very interesting, and I just love the session. I want to give both of them a big round of applause for the various aspects.
So who would like to put the first question to our special guest? Yes, we have a question. Yes, a couple questions over here. Hold on, wait for the mic.
When you wrote Ghetto Story, did you envisage that it would be the anthem that it is today?
I didn't know that it would be so huge. But when you're writing a song, it's just like when a child of yours is being born. You have the greatest expectation for that child, and you wish that child the best, and you want nothing but the best in life for that child. And it's the same thing with music. But we knew that Ghetto Story was special from the minute it was written. We just didn't know that it would take on a life of its own like that. It was like, Ghetto Story, I think, is one of the fastest breaking songs out of Jamaica. Like in 1 week, it was the biggest song in Jamaica. By the next 3 weeks, it was almost the biggest song in America as a dancehall song. Then it transcended to somewhere different, to popular radio, without even we promoting it to popular radio. For instance, MTV was playing a video for Ghetto Story without even we servicing that video to MTV. So Ghetto Story, we didn't know that it was going to take on a life of its own, but we knew it was special.
Thank you.
This is a very shallow question. I met you years ago at South to the East.
Yeah.
And I remember when you just got your Lexus.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, now, do you look back at those little things, like, do you look at your career and have different little stages that you remember and say, I remember this, and is it still a value at this particular point in time?
Everything. I remember exactly the day when I got that Lexus. It's just one of them things. It's like you remember every different stages of your career, every different stage of your life. I remember my first vehicle. My first vehicle was a Honda Civic. I remember my first apartment. My first apartment was a studio apartment. Up to today, my mom still rents it. Studio apartment. When I got that studio apartment, this was 1996 or 1997. I was too young to basically get a place, so they had to buy it in myself, and I think it was Dave Kelly's wife, Niaah. And she had to go to the board, because at the time that complex wouldn't allow me, so she would go to the board, and I was her brother. Yeah, that's the board of the community. And when I got the key to the apartment, I was so excited and so in a rush not to sleep in Sherlock Crescent that night. I slept on the floor. There was no draper in the apartment, no curtains, no bed, no carpet, nothing. I slept on the floor. I took a pillow from my home. I slept on the floor. In the morning, the sun waked me up in the morning. I got up. I didn't worry about nothing at all. No TV was there, nothing at all. I was just there. this was mine. So in your career, you remember every stages. You remember when you were all into cars. Now I'm no longer into cars. I'm more into what my kids like, and more into making sure their college tuitions are paid, and I'm more into movies now. Like I would spend more now into a theater in my house than into cars. You get what I'm saying? But you have different stages of your career, and you have to allow yourself to grow that way, and don't take anything too serious. You go through those stages for a purpose. So you went through those stages of having cars, putting your names in the seats of the cars. You went through those stages. Then you leave those stages and you move on and you evolve just like everything else. But you never ever forget those stages, and you cherish those stages, and you laugh just the same.
Thank you. Who wants to put the next question to our special guests? Do we have more questions on the floor? Yeah, well, I have a question for you. Oh, yes.
What would you want your legacy for your music to be?
Well, I'm known as a sharpshooter. I'm known as basically the only sharpshooter in dancehall. And when I explain sharpshooter, let me explain what I mean. Dancehall artists tend to release 50 to 100 songs per year. I've never released 3 songs for a calendar year throughout my whole career. So for you to do that in dancehall, you must be doing something good in order to do that and survive. Dancehall is very aggressive. It's like lions. They do it songs are recorded every day. I've never released 3 songs for a calendar year. So my legacy for my music, I just want to be, basically, just remember me as making great music. Music that lasted 20 years, lasted 100 years. You get what I'm saying? Not just music that lasts 3 months or 5 months. You come to the concert tonight, I'll be performing Mass. I did Mass when I was 16 years old. That was 1995. You get what I'm saying? You come to the concert tonight, you hear many. Joyride came out when I was 17, 1996. So if you check it, you get what I'm saying? You get the drift though. That's what I want my career, my legacy to leave, that I made classic songs for dancehall music.
I have a question about this, because it has to be said, that's a very unusual outlook for dancehall artists. Even the big name icons of dancehall, a lot of them are seriously over-recorded. So I wondered, how did you come about to enact this policy? Did you have guidance toward that? Was it a personal decision? How did this?
Let me tell you, every artist wants to sing every day. Every artist wants a song to be released every day. That wasn't me. I can't give myself credit for that. That was Dave Kelly on a whole. Dave's principle and his philosophy is quality over quantity. That means sometimes less is more. So if it's not good enough, you're not going to hear it. I've recorded songs, thousands of songs, that you'll never hear, because to him, it's not up to the standard of the last big one. Just like Dave Kelly have a song that was recorded by myself, Bounty Killer, and Beenie Man, and the world has never heard that song. Which producer would have Baby Shark, Bounty Killer, and Beenie Man on one track together in the studio that no one has ever heard? But to him, it was not as big as Look or Get Up Ledge at the time, and he was like, you know what, I'm not releasing it. And that's his way. It's never ever about money for him, it's about the music and the work that needs to be done. And I've followed that principle up to today day, and it has served me well up to today day.
Another very unique thing about your career is that you almost exclusively work for only one producer. There might be 3 or 4 tunes for other producers, but really you only work for Dave Kelly. Can you explain what is the idea behind sticking to this one person?
Well, there's a story to that. I was bouncing about at age 14, 15 from studio to studio. I'm troubled with sinus, I have big sinus problems. So when I sing, you see you're more nasal, which when I talk, now you can hear it. But when I DJ, you see more of my nasal coming out in my vocal. And producers wouldn't give me a shot. All of them were saying it wasn't going to work. It's not going to work out because of your sinus problem. Dave was the only one that basically took the time out to explain to me that I need to sing from a diaphragm, more deeper than you would hear less from a nasal. And ever since then, he was the only one that basically invested that time. And I'm a person that believes in loyalty. If you show me that love and that interest from day one, I'm going to repay you back by basically recording for you solely. And it paid out well for him. When everyone else couldn't get a deal from a major distribution, every other record label in Jamaica would have to go through VP. Madhouse was the only record label that got a major deal from Atlantic Records. And that was basically on my part.
Any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, I think we still got time for one last question from the floor, so this is your chance. You good people, if you have any other questions for our esteemed guests.
Okay, if nobody's asking, so I guess Cham, everybody's waiting for another album. So when is the Lawless thing dropping in? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now?
The Lawless album is dropping the first quarter of 2016. We basically, the single is out, the first single is out on tour, and then you have the bonus single, which is Fighter featuring Damien Marley. We're working on the album now, it's almost done. We're basically like probably 2 or 3 songs from completing the album, but we're not shooting for the fourth quarter. We're shooting for the first quarter of 2016, and it will be a nice album. I'm loving it. I'm loving the fusion so far. Even it's a Fighter, it has that fusion where you get different sounds, not just dancehall and rubber dub. You have dancehall in Fighter, you have rubber dub, you have a little bit of EDM, you have a little bit of new flow. So and I like what Dave really doing with the album, and I hope you all will love the album when it drop also.
Yeah, and don't forget, at 1:09 you're on stage tonight?
I'm on stage at 8:45, yeah, 8:45, yes.
Alright, so thank you so much, the both of you, Cham and Sonjah, Stanley, Niaah, and please give everybody a big round of applause.
Just to remind, we have no session here, no Reggae University session from ourselves tomorrow, but we'll be back the day after at the same time with a session with the group Mellow Mood and Paolo Bardini, the Dub Files project. So make sure to tune in for that. Thank you.